Hello and welcome. I'm glad you're here, settling in for the night. As the world outside grows quiet, we can allow our minds to wander, to drift back to a simpler time. Tonight, we're leaving the bright lights and the noise of the modern world far behind. We're going on a very slow, very quiet journey. We're going to explore the kitchens, the market stalls, and the humble hearths of the ancient world. Our story tonight isn't about kings and conquests. It's not about great battles or dramatic events. No, tonight we're going to explore something much simpler and much more fundamental. Tonight, we're going to talk about food. The strange and simple foods of the ancient world. What did people eat long before supermarkets and fast food? How did they find their meals, prepare them, and share them? It's a story of quiet routines, of sun and soil, of patient hands. A story perfect for drifting off to. So, get comfortable, let your thoughts soften, and let's take a slow, gentle walk through the forgotten flavors of history. Let's begin at the very beginning of a day, long, long ago. Imagine you're not in a bed, but on a simple pallet of straw and hide. The first gray light of dawn is filtering through the smoke hole of a small, round hut. There is no rush, no alarm clock. The day begins with the sun and with the natural needs of the body. The first meal of the day is not called breakfast. It is simply eating when you are hungry. You might rise and take a simple wooden bowl. In a pot near the cold hearth from the night before, there is a thick, cold paste. This is yesterday's porridge, made from grains that were gathered from wild stands or from the first, carefully tended plots of land. The grains, emmer wheat or barley, were crushed between two stones, a slow, rhythmic work. They were boiled in water with a little salt, if any was to be had. This porridge is dense. It is chewy. It is simple. You eat it with your fingers or with a piece of flatbread used as a scoop. There is no sugar, no milk, unless perhaps a little from a goat or a sheep, but that is rare and precious. The flavor is the flavor of the grain itself and of the fire. It is a food that fills the stomach, that gives strength for the hours of work ahead. It is not exciting, but it is life. It is the fuel of humanity's earliest mornings. Let's begin at the very beginning of a day, long, long ago. Imagine you're not in a bed, but on a simple pallet of straw and hide. The first gray light of dawn is filtering through the smoke hole of a small, round hut. As you eat in the quiet hut, you can hear the village slowly stirring. The sound of a stone grinding on grain. The soft call of a child. The day is beginning at its own ancient, unhurried pace. Now, let the scene change. Let us move forward in time and travel to the banks of a great, slow-moving river. The sun is warmer here, almost always present. We are in ancient Egypt, and if there is one sound that defines daily life here, beyond the river's flow, it is the sound of grinding. Close your eyes and listen for it. A rhythmic, scraping, crushing sound. Stone on stone. It is a sound heard in every home, from the simplest mud brick dwelling to the grand estates. It is the sound of making flour. The ancient Egyptians ate more bread than perhaps any other ancient people. It was truly their staff of life. But this bread was not like our bread. The flour was often coarse, full of bits of grit from the grinding stones. It could be dark, made from emmer or barley. Sometimes, sand even found its way in, which is why archaeologists find skeletons with terribly worn teeth. Imagine the bakery, a hot and dusty place. The baker, a patient figure, kneads the dough in a large pot. There are no fancy yeasts. Sometimes they would use a bit of old, fermented dough from the previous day to make the bread rise. Sometimes they would just let it sit and catch wild yeast from the air. Then, the shaping. Not just loaves, but bread in shapes. Fish, people, animals. These are placed in clay pots or slapped onto the hot inner walls of a conical oven. The baking smell would have been a constant, warm, comforting scent in the air. And the flavors were simple. Most bread was just grain, water, and a little salt. But sometimes, for a little variety, they might mix in honey, dates, or herbs. They had no butter, but they might dip their bread in a little oil or use it to scoop up a stew of lentils and onions. So picture an Egyptian worker sitting in the shade during the hottest part of the day. He breaks a piece of dense, flat bread. He dips it into a common bowl of stew. He eats slowly. It is a humble meal, repeated day after day, year after year for millennia. A quiet, sustaining ritual fueled by the relentless, patient grinding of stone on grain. As the Egyptian sun begins to lower, casting long shadows from the pyramids, let us turn our gaze north, to a place of rocks and olive trees, and a different appreciation for the simple meal. We find ourselves now in a small, whitewashed house in ancient Athens. The evening is cool. The business of the agora, the marketplace, is done for the day. It is time for the deipnon, the main meal. But for most people, this is not a grand feast. It is a quiet, family affair. The Greeks believed in simplicity and moderation. They distrusted excess, and this idea extended to their food. A typical evening meal might be a lesson in quiet contentment. Imagine a low table. You're reclining on a simple couch, as is the custom. Before you, there is a clay plate. On it, perhaps a piece of grilled fish caught fresh from the Aegean Sea that morning. It is seasoned with nothing more than a sprinkle of sea salt, a drizzle of olive oil, and a squeeze of lemon or a few crushed olives. The flavor is clean. It is the taste of the sea and the sun. Next to it, a small bowl. In it, a mash of chickpeas, garlic, and olive oil, a simple hummus. There's a basket of flat, barley bread. And for dessert, maybe a handful of figs dried in the summer sun, tasting deeply of sweetness and earth. To drink wine, but it is always mixed with water. Drinking it straight was considered barbaric. The conversation is quiet. Perhaps they talk about the day's events, or a line from a play, or an idea from the philosophers. The food is not the star of the evening. It is a support. It fuels the body so the mind can relax, converse, and wind down. This is a meal designed not to overwhelm the senses, but to satisfy them gently. It is a meal that says, this is enough. There's a deep peace in that simplicity. A peace that settles over the household as the oil lamps flicker and the stars come out over the Aegean. Our journey continues to the very edges of an empire. It is cold here, a damp, gray cold that seeps into your bones. We are at a Roman fort, perhaps in Britannia or along the Rhine frontier. A soldier stands watch, his breath fogging in the air. What does he eat to sustain him through this long, lonely duty? For the Roman legionary, food was fuel for marching and labor. It was reliable, portable, and deeply unglamorous. His day, like the Neolithic villagers, began with a grain-based porridge. They called it pulse or pottage. Barley or wheat, boiled in water, or sometimes milk into a thick mush. It was filling. It was warm. That was its purpose. But the most famous part of his diet was his bread. Hardtack. They called it bucellatum. This was a biscuit baked rock hard, twice baked to last for weeks, even months on campaign. To eat it, the soldier had to soften it. He would dunk it in his stew, or, more commonly, in his drink. And his drink tells another story of simple necessity. He rarely drank water alone, as it was often unsafe. Instead, he drank pasca. This was a mixture of water and sour wine, wine that had turned to vinegar. So picture this soldier on a break from drilling. He sits on a log, the cold ground beneath him. He takes a piece of the hard, dry biscuit. He dips it into a wooden cup of pasca, waiting a moment for it to soften. He takes a bite. It is sour and chewy and plain, but it is energy. It is warmth from the inside. It is the simple, repetitive taste of empire, of order, of a long road stretching behind and ahead of him. A quiet, enduring taste. From the cold frontiers, let us travel to a place of deep tradition and quiet ceremony, where a simple bowl of food is more than just nourishment. The air here is different. It smells of damp earth, of green growing things, of wood smoke. We're in ancient China during the Han Dynasty, perhaps. The field before us is a shimmering, brilliant green, flooded with water. This is a rice paddy, and rice is not just a food here. It is life itself. The growing of rice is a patient art. It requires careful tending, level fields, and a great deal of water. The work is slow, methodical, and often done bent over in the water. It is a quiet, rhythmic labor that shapes the year and the landscape. Now, Imagine the end of that day. A farmer returns to his home. He is tired, his feet muddy. The evening meal is prepared. It is the ultimate in simple foods. A bowl of rice, steamed until each grain is separate and soft. Its flavor is subtle, almost neutral. It is a gentle, starchy comfort, but it is rarely eaten alone. It is the centerpiece, the quiet anchor of the meal. Around it, in small dishes, are accompaniments. Perhaps some pickled vegetables for a sharp, salty contrast. A few pieces of tofu, simmered in a little soy sauce. A bit of steamed fish or a single egg. The flavors are clean, distinct, and designed to complement the plain rice, not overwhelm it. Eating is a quiet ritual. The bowl is held close. Chopsticks lift small portions of the side dishes to eat with a mouthful of rice. It is a balanced meal, not just in nutrition, but in philosophy. The yin and the yang, the plain and the flavored, the hard work and the gentle reward. There is a deep harmony in this meal, a feeling that everything is in its place. As you eat the last grain of rice from the bowl, there is a sense of quiet completeness. A day's cycle finished. It is a feeling of profound, simple peace. We have traveled from villages to empires, from deserts to paddies. But what about when people wanted something a little different? Let's explore the strange. Ancient people ate what was available, and sometimes what was available seems very strange to us today. These were not everyday foods, but occasional treats or foods of necessity that show us a different way of seeing the world. Imagine you are a child in ancient Rome, a bustling street stall. The vendor hands you a small, sweet treat. It is not candy. It is a dried fig. But inside the fig, there is a surprise. A whole, roasted bee, the sweet chew of the fruit, and then the crunchy, nutty pop of the insect. It was a common snack, a bit of protein and sugar. Or, in Mesopotamia, consider the mighty banquet of a king. Among the roasted meats and piles of bread, there might be a delicacy, roasted locusts dipped in honey. They would crunch like little crispy shells, tasting of smoke and sweetness. To them, it was just another creature of the land, a gift from the fields, concentrated and portable. In parts of Northern Europe, people made a cheese that lived. It was a fresh cheese left to age in a damp cave. Molds would naturally grow on it, creating veins of blue and green. This was not a mistake. It was the desired outcome. The cheese would develop a strong, pungent, complex flavor. It was an early partnership with nature's own processes. And then there was garum, the infamous Roman fish sauce. Imagine huge clay vats sitting in the sun for months. In them, layers of small fish, anchovies, sardines, and loads of salt. This would ferment and liquefy. The resulting brown, pungent liquid was the ketchup and soy sauce of the Roman world. A few drops would season an entire pot of stew or lentils. It was umami long before the word existed. To a Roman, it smelled of savory depth. To an outsider, it could smell like a fishing port on a hot day. These strange foods remind us that taste is learned. What seemed strange to us was simply normal to them. It was a world without our rules of what is gross or normal. It was a world of practical, local, and sometimes adventurous eating. As the night deepens, let's think not of the strange, but of the universal. The simplest act of all, shared by every person in every time. In a world without individual plates, without packaged portions, eating was almost always a shared act. It was about community. This is perhaps the most soothing idea of all. Picture a Viking longhouse. The fire in the center is the heart of the home. Over it, a large iron cauldron hangs from chain. Inside, a stew has been simmering all day. It contains whatever was available. Chunks of mutton or pork, roots from the forest, turnips, carrots, onions, wild greens, and barley for thickening. The flavors mingle and meld into one deep, savory, smoky taste. When it is time to eat, people gather around. They have their own spoons, made of wood or horn. They dip their spoons into the common pot. They take a piece of meat, some broth, and a soft root. They might use a piece of hard, flat bread as a bowl or a scoop. There is no my food and your food. There is just the food, the stew pot. In a medieval peasant's cottage, the scene is similar. The pottage cooks in a pot over the hearth day after day. New ingredients are added each morning to what was left from the night before. It is a perpetual stew, always ready, always nourishing. The family eats from it together. It is a constant, a reliable center to their lives. This shared bowl creates a quiet bond. Conversation is slow. The business of eating is simple, rhythmic. There is a comfort in the sameness of it. The same pot, the same flavors, the same people, night after night. In a world of uncertainty, the shared meal was a point of stability. A warm, savory center in a cold world. Before we end our journey, let's taste one last thing. Something sweet. But in a world without refined sugar, sweetness was a rare and precious gift straight from nature. Imagine you are in the hot, dry climate of ancient Persia. The summer sun is intense. But this sun is also a great preserver. Picture a courtyard, its flat rooftops covered with sheets of dried fruit. Apricots, peaches, dates, and figs cut open and laid bare to the heat. Over days, the moisture evaporates. The fruits shrink, their flavors becoming concentrated into deep, caramel-like sweetness. A single dried date becomes a treasure. It is chewy, almost like candy. It is pure energy. A traveler might carry a pouch of them. A child might receive one as a special treat. The taste is the pure taste of the fruit, multiplied by the sun. In the woods of Europe, sweetness was a hunt. It was finding a wild beehive, smoking out the bees, and carefully extracting a piece of honeycomb. The golden honey, with bits of wax and pollen, was a magical substance. It was used to sweeten porridge, to make a simple drink of water and honey, or to preserve fruits. Its flavor changed with the flowers the bees had visited, clover, or wildflower, or heather. Each batch was unique, a taste of a specific meadow, a specific season, or simply a piece of ripe fruit picked at its perfect moment. A sun-warmed fig, splitting its skin. A handful of wild berries, staining the fingers purple. These were fleeting moments of pure, natural sugar. They were not desserts after a meal. They were little gifts found during the day. A moment of quiet pleasure, a taste of the sun's own kindness. These ancient sweets required no factories, no processing, just patience and the right season. They taught people to appreciate the moment, for the taste would not last. It was a gentle lesson in gratitude, found in a single sweet bite. And so, our slow walk through the ancient kitchens comes to an end. We've tasted the chewy porridge of the first villages, the gritty, sustaining bread of Egypt, the simple, clean suppers of Greece, the practical fuels of the Roman soldier, the harmonious bowls of rice, the strange, practical delicacies, the comforting shared stews, and the rare, sun-made sweets. What ties all these foods together is their simplicity. They were made from what was at hand, from the grain in the field, the fish in the river, the fruit on the tree, the herb on the hillside. Their preparation was slow, rhythmic work, grinding, boiling, drying, fermenting. There were no shortcuts. Food was the direct result of labor and of the seasons. Eating was a quiet, mindful act. It was often shared, and it was enough. There's a deep calm in that idea, a release from the endless choices and complexities of our modern world. In the ancient world, a meal was not about excitement. It was about sustenance, community, and a quiet gratitude for the earth's provisions. As you lie here now, comfortable and safe, you can almost taste that simplicity, the plainness of the bread, the clarity of the grilled fish, the comfort of the shared stew. It is a humble history, written not in stone, but in the daily, quiet acts of feeding and being fed. So let these simple, ancient flavors linger in your mind. Let them replace the day's clutter. There is peace in their plainness. There is rest in their repetition. The story is told. The journey is done. Let your mind be as quiet and as content as a meal finished, a bowl empty, a hearth glowing with low, warm embers. The night is deep, still, and gentle. Good night.